Welcome to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Will Lou. A reminder, we are streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday between 1 and 3 p.m. I'm joined by producer and co-host Alex Wong. Alex, are you all right, man?
Yeah, it was good, man.
The energy pre-show has not been sky high. I don't know.
You know how it is, man. I try to preserve myself.
Sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays.
I got a case of the Mondays, man. I'm just having my first coffee of the day. You know what I'm saying? Getting settled in. We're going to dissect. It's a true crime podcast today. We're going to dissect the crime scene from Philadelphia.
Oh, it wasn't that bad.
On Saturday, the Raptors are back in action tonight. It wasn't that bad? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, no,
bad.
it was.
It was pretty bad.
I'm just trying to put a positive spin on it.
Yeah, don't worry.
Because it's like a bizarro scenario on the show today. Like, I feel like I'm having to pick up your energy rather than...
No. Trust me, I'm turned up. Is that what the kids say these days?
All right.
No? Okay, anyways.
Let's talk about basketball.
Yeah, okay.
Or ask me about me.
Oh, yeah. No, let's save that for the second segment.
Okay.
But yes, I think the big news we need to lead off, obviously Scotty Barnes got injured in game one. He showed up to shoot around this morning in a walking boot, was in good spirits by all accounts, but he is out tonight. Thaddeus Young was there taking shots. He hurt his thumb. He is hopefully going to be ready to go tonight. Gary Trent Jr., non-COVID illness, was not a shoot-around today. So you're telling me the Raptors are down 3 rotation players potentially tonight after one playoff game?
Yeah, I think that's actually the more devastating part of game one. Obviously losing in that fashion is not great. And, of course, Philadelphia played really well. And, Tyrese Maxey was a huge problem. Even Tobias Harris is a huge problem. I don't know. But at the same time, it's really just the injuries. Like, you can't cut 3 guys from this team, 2 starters, and your most dependable bench player, which I've already upgraded Thad into that situation because for me, in a pressure scenario, I can trust a veteran who's not going to be out there making erratic plays or like fouling out in 15 minutes or Precious taking a rush 3. I don't think Thad's going to do any of that. So a guy who is very dependable, if you lose 3 of those guys, even for one game of the series, then it really, really puts you down. So that, more than anything else, is the depressing part. I think really you can look at game one tactically. You can look at it in terms of you can make adjustments. It's what the playoffs are all about, and you hope to make all those adjustments. But I don't know. I can't name another 3 Raptors who can step in and fill in quite a bit. So I think Nick's probably going to have to shorten the rotation to make it happen, and then you probably have to trust 1 or 2 guys to start popping off the bench. But, realistically, how much would you expect Utah to step in and do a great job on the road? Or Armani Brooks or Malachi Flynn. Those aren't fantastic options. And by the way, when you're talking about only 3 guys going down, I mean, there was a lot of just pure carnage that came out of that game one because you got Kem Birch getting elbowed in the head.
Yeah, he went in concussion protocols and cleared it.
Yeah.
Who else, man? Thad Young obviously got hit.
Thad was, he was just diving for a loose ball with James Harden.
Yeah, OG
and
lost his tooth.
No, so apparently there was some people speculated that it was his tooth that was lost,
but it was
his contact.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out to Sportsnet's Danielle Michaud, friend of the program, former Raptor Show global ambassador, who was down in Philly. And
she's at the crime scene in Philadelphia.
No, it wasn't the crime scene, man. Relax, okay, all right. This guy sounds like who's the guy in CSI Miami? The guy who
I don't know. I don't watch CSI Miami.
David Caruso.
Excited for Better
Alex
Call
Caruso?
Saul tonight, though. 2 episodes.
Okay, we're not at that point in the show yet, but
okay.
So OG's fine. He lost the contact, but he took a pretty hard hit from James Harden, who was driving and then caught him with an elbow on a follow through. What else? Scotty, before getting his ankle stepped on by a giant, had his face mashed by that same giant for that flagrant 1 foul.
An elbow to the face. Well, listen, last week,
it was a rough game one.
Yeah.
It was a rough game one, but I don't know. For some reason, I'm feeling optimistic.
No, I'm feeling good too. I might even
Are you?
guarantee a victory tonight and then come in here
please,
tomorrow and
no more
have to
Alex Wong guarantees,
issue
man.
an apology. But
Last time you guaranteed something, you said Kawhi was coming back.
No, remember I guaranteed that Bucks win earlier this year at home? Anyways, we can move on. I guess people don't remember regular season predictions. But remember last week we were in here with Vivek Jacob and you were going through the concern meter, the anxiety meter. And the one thing that I think I gave a 9 out of 10 was when you're asking about the whistle, when you're asking about the refereeing. And I think the Sixers clearly got the better of that in game one. And I think the referees let them play in that way where a lot of that physicality was allowed. I mean, we can start with 8 seconds into the game, the first possession. Fred is just playing defense on Tyrese Maxey.
Their names are
and
Jason Goebel. By the way, Jason Goebel was a very chaotic spelling of Jason.
Yeah?
Yeah. How do you think Jason spells his name?
Does it start with a J?
Yes, it does.
I was going to say Yason. Jason.
No,
How
honestly,
do you spell
that would
it?
be
Tell me.
less
J-A-I?
It's like
O-N?
Jacyn.
Okay.
That's very chaotic.
Yeah, man. We're already at dissecting referees' names. Come on now.
That's what I do. Their names are.
8 seconds into the game, I think the tone was set right away. Fred gets called for his first foul. He's got 2
on nothing,
fouls
by the way. Like literally on nothing. Like it was so he bodies up on Tyrese, doesn't push him or anything. Tyrese stumbles, but like maintains control of the ball, is just gonna get back up. There was no chance of even a turnover or anything like that. It's like literally a play that will happen 50 times a game.
But that's a tone-setting call for the game.
Yes,
like
I agree.
and
I agree.
it just continued from there. And then let's be clear. I mean, even before the Scottie injury, the game was lost. Like the Raptors were trailing by 20 plus. I think they made a couple of small runs there in the third quarter, but they just had no answer for Tyrese Maxey. Had 21 points alone in the third quarter. I mean, that was one of the best offensive performances of all time. Based on
the
offensive rating on statistics and all of that stuff.
Yeah, John Schumann of ESPN, or not ESPN, of NBA.com said it was the third most efficient game in terms of offensive rating
in the last 26 years.
Yeah, of the playoffs.
Yeah. There's only been 11 times in the last 26 years where a team scored at least 140 points per 100 possessions. And the Sixers had an offensive rating of 147.2. Forget about the injuries. We can't forget it because clearly it's going to impact this series and tonight's game. But when you're looking at tonight's game, it's got to start with the defense. It's got to start with winning the possession battle, forcing more turnovers, offensive rebounds, because that Raptors team in game one, not the Raptors team that I think a lot of people picked to upset the Sixers, and then not the Raptors team that we saw in the last month of the season. Reminded me a lot of them coming out of the All-Star break and laying 2 eggs against Atlanta and Charlotte. And, the good thing is this team always does respond. Again, how many bodies do they have tonight to respond with is the bigger problem, but I am expecting a way better performance tonight.
Yeah, look, of course you would expect that because, no one wants to see a repeat of this. I mean, the Raptors defense was so bad, they made Philadelphia look like Detroit.
Damn.
Yeah. So,
that hurts. That actually hurts.
Philadelphia had 131 points. They only took 84 shots.
Oh, my God.
Think about that. 131 on 84 shots. Of course, they went to the free throw line quite a bit. I mean, look, it was obviously a really good performance from Philadelphia, I think. Number one, how do you adjust to this? That's the playoffs. You adjust game to game. It's a chess match. You trust, Nick Nurse to do it, right? How many times did we say it's Nicky Nurse baby on the show last week?
I better be saying it a couple more times tonight.
No, this is a Nicky Nurse game.
Okay.
This is Nicky Nurse, baby.
Yeah, it better be a Nicky Nurse game because, you're going to need to adjust. I have to give Glenn Rivers a lot of credit.
I hate to see it.
I think he got his undergrad yesterday. Or undergrad on the weekend. All right, he's
still missing a couple credits though. It's just one game.
He's a third of the way there for me. But no, I mean, I think for Philadelphia, what they did was really interesting. So there's so much talk about Matisse Thybulle, his absence, whatever. Did you even notice Matisse in the game?
No, I only noticed Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris.
Yeah, so Matisse didn't really factor in that much. Played 19 minutes. Some of that was even garbage time. He didn't actually matter that much. He wasn't really playing that much defensively either. What Glenn did was limit the minutes for all of his non-shooters. Right? He did play Paul Reed, but only 11 minutes. Thybulle played 19 off the bench. Shake Milton was in the rotation, 14 minutes. He hit a 3. He also got fouled on a 3. Georges Niang played, right? But everybody on that team was ready to shoot, ready to go. They played very fast, which is, I think, something that's run counter to the way Philly has played this season. Played it on a lot of the open floor. They were really good at boxing out and attentive at boxing out. I don't know. Sometimes you think about it, and I remember even last week when we did a week straight of previews, I brought up the idea that, like Tyrese was saying, if we limit transition and keep the Raptors off the offensive glass, I think we'll be good. And then I posed that question to Wolfon, and Wolfon kind of laughed. And he's like, oh, yeah, why doesn't every team do that? But there was some merit to that, right? Did that not happen? And I'm not saying that that's always going to stay that way. I think the Raptors can, obviously play better and all that stuff. But to me, when I was looking at it, even just looking at the film the next day, it was like, so, throughout the previews, I was looking at the other games that the Raptors played. And I think one of the stats I pointed out was James Harden conceded like 8 offensive rebounds on his own. Like the Raptors, whoever was James Harden's man on offense, as soon as the shot went up, they would jump over his back and get the rebound. And he just wasn't paying much attention. I was watching it yesterday, and it was like, oh, yeah, he had his back turned. He was looking to box out. And turns out a man can box out and keep you off the offensive glass, right? So I think there were like lots of points of emphasis for Philadelphia that they hit that was good. So you have to really give Rivers a lot of credit there. On the flip side, though, I think for the Raptors, defensively, they didn't really execute their stuff very well whatsoever. When you look back on the film, now, James Harden hit a couple step-back jumpers, which was, what he does. He grifted his way to the free throw line a little bit. But for the most part, the Raptors did a good job of limiting Embiid and Harden's individual offense, right? They combined for 11 total made field goals. Quite frankly, those guys can each have 11 field goals, right? So you might think that that's good. However, the Raptors didn't force any turnovers out of those two guys. Only 2 for guys who had the ball the whole game. The Sixers, by the way, only turned the ball over 3 times. And when you look at the film, it felt like the Raptors overreacted to James Harden. They just kept leaving Tobias Harris open and Tyrese Maxey open. And now of course, it's not that simple. It's not like, oh yeah, you either leave them open or you stay on them, whatever. There's an in-between. There's like there's a gradient to how open you leave a guy, right? What you saw against Harden was that they were so anxious about sending help against Harden that they were leaving them so wide open that either they can just hit the shot or they can attack the closeout and score. And make no mistake, Maxey and Harris are pretty good offensive players where they can hurt you on that. So even if you do want to help off of them, which I do think that the Raptors will probably stick with that strategy in game 2, it's about executing it better. It's about not helping when you don't need to. It's about also, if you do help, how much do you come over and help? How many steps are you away from the ball? How aware are you of situations happening off the ball? Because you also can't give up so many open shots. Like, you can't say to yourself, I'm so worried about James Harden driving and beating his man one-on-one, when he has, by the way, shown little evidence of that so far. Even in yesterday's game, Saturday's game, I don't think he killed the Raptors one-on-one scoring that much. You can't be so afraid of that you're willing to give up wide open shots to guys who can actually hit them. Now, of course, I don't expect them to hit them at this exact rate. That's fine. But I think overall on the defensive end, you have to strike a better balance. And especially when you look over the film, and I definitely went through and clipped this, there was tons of mistakes on that front. And to be fair, I think that that's to be expected. Your natural inclination when James Harden has the ball and he's such a wizard with the ball, it's like, okay, you're going to watch the ball, but you have to fight that instinct. When you see James Harden driving downhill, and the Raptors' principles all season has been, let's collapse the paint. And of course, there's natural instinct. That's James Harden, like former scoring champion, assist champion, MVP in this league, multiple-time All-Star, top 75 player of all time, all this other stuff. It's like, I need to send help. That's James Harden. But you have to fight those instincts. And you have to stay home a little bit longer and, follow the game plan. The game plan against James Harden is you're going to play him tight one-on-one. If he drives downhill, that's okay. What you do is you send help at the last second right under the basket and you stand straight up. You can jump if you want to, if you really think that you can vertically challenge, like you do the verticality thing, but that's the game plan. You send help last second at the basket to contest the layups and make him shoot floaters and stuff like that. But what the Raptors did was they helped so early that all Harden needed to do was just flip the ball over to the corner and they would get open shots. So those are things that you can correct in film session, and I expect the Raptors to do so because, quite frankly, if you don't do that, then you might have another situation where Philadelphia maybe doesn't burn you for 131 points, but they could easily get 120 because Harden's a really good passer, and quite frankly, he's a very willing passer. So there's things to adjust for, and I'm sure that that's what the highlight of yesterday's practice was.
Yeah, James Harden ended up with 14 assists. Tyrese Maxey, Tobias Harris combined for 64 points, 23 of 35
Yeah, it was a lot.
from the field. Yeah, so you mentioned Joel Embiid. So he shot 5 for 15 from the field, went to the line 11 times, 19 points, 15 rebounds, 4 assists. Here's a clip of Nick Nurse after game one talking about the defense on Joel Embiid and the refs really allowing the Sixers to get away with some stuff.
We got to believe that if we're legal defensively, that they're going to call those. Right? Like, we had a couple times where we beat him to the spot and he bowled us right over and they just let him lay it in. I don't care if you're 5'11" and 160 pounds, if you beat him to the spot and he runs you over, it's a foul. I thought he threw 3 or 4 elbows to the face. He got called for 1. Okay? We're going to stand in there, but we just need, if we're legal defensively, then we got to have him called or we don't have a chance. Period. Nobody can guard that guy if he's just going to let him run. They're just going to let him run you over time and time again. But we're going to stand in there and we'll see if we don't get a few more elbow to the face calls and a few more beating them to the spot calls.
So Nick is saying, let us play ethical defense. When you're watching the tape, what are you seeing in terms of some of those calls that Nick was referencing?
Yeah, no, I could see like where he would be upset. There were like 3 or 4 instances where the Raptors were in place, built the wall, hands straight up. Either it was Chris Boucher and Embiid would just like go up and they give him the free throw, or the play where Kem Birch is standing right in front of him, Embiid bowls him, lowers the shoulder, knocks him over, trips over his carcass as he's shooting, and they call the foul on Kem Birch. And it's like, okay, so those are very frustrating because literally if you allow that, first off, those are just like, those either aren't fouls or some of those are quite frankly offensive fouls. Like if you allow that, then what do you really do, right? There's not even going to be a series. I think that's why Nick was so quick to point it out. Look, I thought Nick was always going to talk about the officiating at some point, and that was like halfway he talked about it. Like, I don't even think Nick will get fined for that. So that won't be the last time. And quite frankly, if you've ever watched a Sixers game with these two, that wasn't even that bad. There were some tricks and stuff like that. And I went through and put a highlight reel together. The responses became so toxic on Twitter, I literally just like stopped using Twitter for a whole day.
Twitter toxic during the playoffs?
Yeah, so no, I literally stopped. It was either Raptor fans being like, the NBA is cheating us out of a championship, or it was like Sixer fans being like, these are all fouls, and you don't know ball. And I'm like, I don't need to use my app. I'm good. I have lots of apps on my phone. In fact, I could just disconnect.
So are you saying you took a holistic approach this weekend?
Yeah, I thought you were going to ask me about earlier, but that's fine. We'll get into nitty gritty right here. And it's like, I think what Nick is saying is really just like, give us a chance to play basketball.
Yep.
Right. Of course, there are things that you get upset by, like when Embiid elbowed Kem Birch in the temple, and he fell down for the whole possession because a 300-pound man elbowed him in the temple. And the referees just don't call anything, and the play goes on. It's 4-on-5, and the Raptors go on and they score 4-on-5, and then they still don't really get Kem back into the play. And it's like, okay, you might want to call that, once in a while. If guys are in legal help position, you have to like give the Raptors that chance to actually guard rather than just giving him these calls. But having said that, though, Embiid and Harden combined for 18 free throws? That's very normal. You're kind of more or less actually going to have to live with that for the most part. So I think it's fine for Nick to point that out, but I don't think he actually went all the way in on the officials as he could have. I think some of the other calls, though, like, they do add up, they do frustrate you, but also ultimately at the end of the day, you look at a scenario like the Sixers getting to the free throw line 34 times. That's not that much of a surprise. I think what hurt you the most was the fact that you had 2 rotation players fouling out. You had Scotty Barnes, who had his ankle stepped over. He's writhing on the floor in pain, and the officials don't even stop the game. They're like, yeah, he's fine. He's flopping. They're like, are you serious?
And that was at the same time that Fred fouled out.
So
right?
Fred had to take a 6th foul just to like bring assistance to the game because the officials couldn't see anything. right? Like those things are obviously going to frustrate you after a game, but ultimately you're going to have to live with the fact that the Sixers are going to shoot more free throws than you. That's just how it is. Which, by the way, it is kind of funny to me that the NBA is like the one sport where you're just like, the average fan is just like made to accept that rules are slightly different for star players. They're like, it's just like two sets of rules, right? Like, it's like, obviously I'm wearing like a Liverpool kit right now, right? But like, I know what a foul is in soccer, right? You can, like, there are certain things that are clearly fouls. I'm not even saying, like soccer officiating is the best, but like the rules are the rules for everybody. The rules are the rules for everybody in hockey. There's not like, oh yeah, Sidney Crosby is just allowed to trip people because he's Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, name two more hockey superstars as examples.
Austin Matthews.
Damn.
Who's Case? Kerfoot?
You don't have
John
to name
Tavares.
just-
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
there's a whiteboard in front of us actually that has the
All right,
least
you did
three
it.
lines.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying.
No, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, oh yeah, they're just allowed to cross-check because, we have to keep them in the game because that's what's going to bring the fans in. I think the NBA is so desperate sometimes to like, oh, we have to keep our stars in the game. We have to like sell this game that we just create a double standard, which I think is objectively a turnoff for everybody.
It is a turnoff because it's literally a talking point every single spring when the playoffs start.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
and that's the reason why. But it's called preferential treatment at the workplace. You know what I'm saying? It happens everywhere.
Okay, but it's also called sports. Like the whole idea is you compete and see who wins.
In the playoffs, no one's trying to lose. No, trust me, I'm with you.
Yeah.
Nick also.
Anyway, that's not the reason why the Raptors lost the game. Can we also be clear about that? That's not the reason why the Raptors lost
the Raptors lost because they played terribly.
Yeah, exactly.
And they didn't show up on the defensive end. And the injuries multiply the issues going into tonight.
Mm-hmm.
In the presser, Nick also talked about the lack of defensive plays from his own team. Here's a clip.
Not enough ball pressure, Dave, not enough active hands, probably not enough physicality. The things that you need to do to, we usually are good at surprising you when you make a turn move or whatever and somebody else is coming in behind. And I thought, listen, I thought we got our hands on some tonight. We really got, I thought some of those were good steals going the other way and didn't turn out that way. So hopefully we'll get some of those clean ones to go our way.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's tough, man. Nick basically said, "Don't officiate us like we're the Orlando Magic. Like, give us some respect."
Okay. Do I need to still make a reference or no?
Yes, I know you had one ready. But
well, I was gonna say, on a scale of Kyle Lowry scoring 0 points against the Orlando Magic in Game 1, to 10, how bad was this Game 1 loss? You think in the history of the Raptors franchise?
Oh, you want to actually do this? Okay, cool. So. I saw that you had this note in the rundown and we were going to talk about this. So I actually went through just really quickly and looked at some of the bad Game 1 losses.
Are we counting only first round or can we count later rounds?
Oh, no. Game 1 is Game 1.
Okay.
Game 1 is universal, whether it's in any round. The Raptors are probably going to lose.
Yeah, quick mini draft. I think the first overall pick has to be the Game 1 against the Cavs.
Yeah, 2018. That's objective. Ian Eagle saying, "There's a lid on the rim." After DeMar drove baseline, drew 2 defenders, kicked out Fred wide open for 3. Fred, of all people, misses the 3. But the Raptors get the tip in. I think CJ Miles had a chance at it. I think JV had multiple chances at it. DeMar might have been in on the mix as well. And they just wouldn't hit the shot. And, of course, the Raptors went on to lose in overtime and get swept in that series. I also see you have the Orlando game where Kyle scored 0 and DJ Augustine had 25 and hit the game winner over 2 defensive players of the year.
Who just didn't talk to each other.
2 defensive players of the year, Kawhi Leonard, Marc Gasol, and it was DJ Augustine who hit the shot over both of them.
Kawhi was sending
kind of amazing.
Kawhi was sending Morse code to Marc Gasol to switch.
Kawhi didn't even say, hey. He wasn't even like, hey, step up on the screen.
That's the moment when I knew Kawhi wasn't talking to anybody in that locker room. What else you got in the Game 1?
Okay, so even going back to the last time the Raptors even played in the playoffs.
Yep.
2020 inside the bubble, Game 1 against the Celtics. You remember that? That game was genuinely depressing.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
So they lose 112-94. The Raptors shot 37% from the field in that game.
Yeah, that was a disgusting game.
It was really nasty. I was looking at the box score. Fred was like 4-17. Pascal was like 5 of 15. Kyle was like 4 of 12. Norm was like 4 of 16. It was like, how did the Raptors even have 94 points? 2017, the Raptors lose 2 Game 1s that year. All right, there's that one Game 1 where LeBron is beating the Raptors and he almost sips the beer. Remember that?
Is this the one where Kyrie and LeBron combine on an alley-oop like 2 minutes in?
Literally 2 minutes into the game.
I've never seen a playoff series end with 10-15 left in the first quarter of game one.
You know how quickly Jason Goble called that foul on Fred VanVleet? That's how quickly LeBron James called series.
He's a global ambassador.
All right? It was like 2 minutes into the game.
The series was over.
The Cavs got on the fast break. Kyrie throws a lob off the glass to LeBron, who catches it one hand, flushes it, as if it was like the Christmas game or something, or like an all-star game, right? But later in that game, LeBron beats Serge Ibaka off the dribble, doesn't get the and one to drop. He's kind of like upset or whatever, runs to the corner, and it just happens to be like an attendant in there.
Yep.
And he picks up the beer, pretends to drink it, and he puts it back. And J.R. Smith is like dying and laughing and stuff like that.
Bro, this was game one.
That was game one.
Of a best of 7.
But that wasn't the worst game one of 2017, because in the first round, when the Raptors lost to Milwaukee, they lost 97-83, which I think was the final score of the home opener, by the way. Very, very close to it, actually, this year. But in that game, how many points do you think Kyle scored?
I'm going to say 7.
Less. 4.
Oh, my God.
Kyle scored 4 points in a 97-83 loss in Game 7, Game 1. The Raptors shot 36% overall. Kyle Lowry got outscored by Matthew Dellavedova coming off the bench from Milwaukee. And Dellavedova didn't even have a good game. He shot like 3 of 9, but he had 11 points.
The human bed bug.
Yeah. 2018, right? We talked about that. 2016, none of them are like that bad to me. But at the same time, has any team in the history of the NBA lost 3 game ones in one playoff run?
So this was Indiana,
Miami.
Well, Cleveland. They got blown out, I think, right away.
Yeah. Has any team, you think, in the history of basketball had a playoff run where they lost 3 game ones?
Well, the wild thing about that run, too, is you remember that Miami game one, Kyle hitting that ridiculous shot from like beyond half court, I think, right? Like to send the game into overtime, and then they lose, and then Kyle comes back out after because he was in a shooting slump to practice shooting. Like the Raptors just find like the most ridiculous and dramatic ways.
Yeah, we're always too dramatic in game
Why
one.
can't it just be a standard, toe-to-toe battle with the Sixers and you just lose by 7 points because James Harden hit a setback 3 with a minute left to put the game away? But no, we got to get blown out. We got guys in concussion protocol.
People got to drink beer.
We lose our rookie just when he was like, 2 assists away, I think, from a triple-double.
Yep.
And by the way, like I think we should mention that too. Like Scotty looked ready for the moment.
He looked great.
And that makes the injury even more crushing.
But that's the only thing to me that is crushing, because I think the Raptors could just straight up come back and like make this a series. Like I don't think the series is over, but the injuries really do throw a wrench into that, because of course any team would, if you lose 3 rotation players, you're going to be down bad. Which, by the way, speaking of down bad, 2015 game 1, remember that?
Washington.
Yes.
Randy Whitman with the upside down clipboard. Gravis hit a 3 to send it into overtime. Did the shimmy.
Yeah.
Getting swept by Randy Whitman, man. That's on Dwayne's resume.
Listen,
shouts to Dwayne.
Shouts to Dwayne. He wore the championship ring to the podium afterwards. From Dallas as an assistant.
Well, that, you know what? Some of those hurt more in retrospect because they led to sweeps. And that Washington sweep was crushing.
That game 1 was really sad because, look, salute to Gravis Vasquez. It's a great shot. Gravis Vasquez should not be the one shimmying for your team. Can we just be honest about that?
Yeah, he's no Trae Young is what
he wasn't the first option.
Yeah.
He wasn't the second option. He wasn't the third option. He wasn't even the fourth option. But he was the one taking the big shot and tying it into overtime, which, again, salute to him. But that suggests there's a problem on your team. Like, imagine, like, you're playing the Sixers, and at the end of the game, it's a close game, Danny Green isos, hits a 3, and then, like, shimmies on you. You're like, come on, man. That's not what's supposed to happen. Like, you're not that worried about it. You're annoyed, but you're not that worried. So, anyway, game 1's for the Raptors, not good. What's the history now? 5-17?
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. The last time they won a game 1 on the road was 2001 when Raptors played the Sixers. Right after they upset the Knicks in Game 5 at Madison Square Garden, and went in and played. It's been a long time, and man, can't believe they added another one to the list on Saturday. But listen, here's one more clip from Nick Nurse about what the Raptors need to do to respond in Game 2.
They were highly motivated and ready to go. I think there's a lot of expectations on them. I think they were going to try to bully us right off the floor and deliver a blow to see if we'll go away. Now we're going to find out if we will or not.
Yeah, I think, listen, every playoff game takes on a different narrative, different flow. So let's just see what happens tonight. I think clearly, given the bodies that are, potentially going to be missing, they're going to need. This is the game for Fred, Pascal, and OG.
Yeah,
Like this
for
is the
sure. They
game for
gotta
those
step up.
trio. Like
Yep.
they got to step up. If the Raptors are going to win, I think two of those three players at least have to be, the best players on the floor tonight. Is that too much of an ask? I don't know.
No, it's not.
So
It's not. It's a big ask, but it's also what you would need to do to win the game.
I
So,
believe in this team. I mean, I think
Yeah, me too.
they have bounced back all year. And I
Yeah.
think, think about all the shows that we do. Every time we've come in here celebrating, they've let us down. Every time they let us down, they let us celebrate again. So it's up and down. So you know what? Let's get this win tonight, man. I'm feeling better.
Yeah, let's go. I'm happy I talked to you into a slightly more positive mood. By the way, I see some gray hairs coming through for you under that speed hat.
Come on, man. I'm
no,
37, man. Of course I have gray hairs.
Nah, I don't know. That's a new one, man. I sit beside you every day
Come on,
I
man.
look at the side of your head.
This guy said I spotted a new gray hair.
Nah, I'm gonna take a photo. Just put it on social.
This guy's
You guys can
currently
check that.
Earl Grey, man.
Yeah, no,
God
no,
damn.
no. Anyway, I'm your host, Will Loop. That's Alex Wong. You've been listening to the Raptor Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590 The Fan, powered by DoorDash. I'm your host, Walu. That's Alex Wong. We're still talking about Game 1 against the Sixers. Raptors losing by a score of 131-111 to fall down 0-1 in the series. Game 2 will be taking place tonight in Philadelphia. Raptors short at least one body, but quite frankly, quite possibly short 3 bodies. And yeah, Alex, I thought you were going to ask me at the start of the show about, just my holistic approach, because I think that, the game happened on Saturday and then Sunday happened. Happy Easter to people who celebrated. And then,
Yeah, I thought it wasn't about you. That's why I didn't want to lead off with it.
Why is it the first item in the chart then?
Anyways, how was your holistic approach this weekend after the Game 1 loss?
Yeah, so, first off, after the game on, Saturday, I don't know. It just drained me so much to talk about the game. I was like, no, I thought I was going to go through and do the film session and stay up late and write 10 things. And I was like, I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to go to sleep early, wake up early, make breakfast, and then really dive in, which is exactly what I did. So literally, woke up 8 o'clock on the Sunday.
What did you make for breakfast?
I had, what did I have? I don't know, like just oatmeal and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't much of a making breakfast kind of day. I kind of made some oatmeal and cut up an orange or whatever. But sat down, watched the film, clipped the film. I have lots of files in my laptop from just watching the film. And then I kind of broke it down, put some videos out, and then wrote 10 things. All that took about, 2.5 hours. So it was about noon. And I was like, oh, okay, well, the games are about to happen. Like, Miami's about to play Game 1 against Atlanta. And then after that, it was going to be this Brooklyn game against, Boston. And, there's a whole slate of NBA games on tonight. And I was like, honestly, I can't let basketball have this much control of my life. Quite frankly, it's too much basketball at a certain point, right? And I had watched all the playing games. I had watched all the games on day one. And I was like, this is just too much basketball. And I was like, I opened my app and everyone was just complaining or lamenting the loss. And I was just like, even for me, it's too much Raptors basketball. You got to take a break from it. And so that's what I did. Went for our walk in the neighborhood. Ended up at a taco place, which was great. Sat on the patio. It was just slightly warm enough to wear a coat and sit outside and, have some tacos, read cover story a little bit.
This guy's finally on chapter 2.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, wow. I didn't know Michael Jordan retired from basketball.
The world has to end. The Raptors have to lose a disastrous Game 1 for this guy to finally pull out cover story.
Then I was like, no, honestly, a few pages in, I was like, I'm also engaging in basketball. So even though I'm reading your book, I'm like,
yeah, no,
I can't do this. So I went out for a coffee, then walked around, bought some fruit or whatever, came home. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll watch some basketball now. And I was like, nah, what I'm going to do is go watch Everything Everywhere All at Once again.
Oh,
in theaters. So I caught the late viewing.
You should have hit me up, man. I've been wanting to rewatch that movie too.
I thought about hitting you up, but I also thought
you also need a break from me
every day. To me, you're also basketball. When I look over at you and your grays, I'm like, no, that's Aaron Gray right there. This is a basketball in front of me. Okay,
how's my gray hair becoming part of the narrative, man?
Yeah, no,
I hate this.
Honestly, I think at the end of the show, you're gonna look like Gandalf the White in Lord of the Rings 3.
Ooh, movie reference.
Yes, that's right. My favorite scene was anyway, and then
so you did get away from basketball.
Yeah, and then I watched Everything Everywhere All at Once for the second time because I already said last week after I watched it, my first impression was that might be the greatest movie I've ever seen.
And everybody who's watched it, I've seen just random social media posts and even some of my friends, like my friend John. The reaction has been the exact same. So all I'm saying is Will is not exaggerating.
No, I'm really not. And I was like, okay, look, if it is that good of a movie, if I see it again in theaters, which I almost never do, I'm not one of those people that goes to, I don't know, who even does that? Who watched the movie twice in theaters? But I chose to do it. And it hit just the same. I was still crying in the theater. I was still, laughing out loud and had a great time. And
just crying about the Raptors.
No,
everyone in the theaters.
I genuinely did. Listen, man, I had a lot of texts. I had a lot of messages and everything like that. A lot of people obviously want to talk Raptors and whatever. Even just just people around the league and whatever. And I'm just like, nah, I'm chill. I'm gonna ignore everybody today, and I'm just gonna actually live a holistic approach like I always say I will. And I think it was good to know. I think it was just I hope for members of the Raptors, Obviously, they had practice and they had treatment and all that other stuff. But I hope they had some chances to, quite frankly, go to the theater and just like disconnect from basketball a little bit. Look, you can't. I mean, this is coming from me, but like you can't do this every single day all the time. Like you need to literally go out there and touch some grass. And for me, I was like, I went outside and I proverbially touched grass. I think I probably physically touched grass as well, but you kind of have to, especially because like, what are you gonna do? Ruminate on the game one loss that much? Like,
Yes,
at a certain.
that's what everyone's doing.
Okay, well, I did that for the first 2 hours or 3 hours after waking up, and then I said enough basketball. It's just people putting a ball through a hoop. Like it's not that special.
No, I like
I even
it.
watched like Celtics versus Nets, which I thought was like going to be a great game. It was a great game, and on a buzzer beater, I'm like, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, I think I took a similar. Listen, man, we joke a lot about me not watching basketball. I mean, it's not a joke, but I forgot how intense it is to really dial yourself in and commit to watching the Raptors in the playoffs. Like, I think there was a lot of anxiousness, on Saturday. I should have known a bad game was coming because I started Saturday doing my taxes. So that was a terrible day.
Damn.
And then the Raptors, lost, and I just forgot how exhausting it is to kind of focus yourself and really like just dial all the way in for a Raptors playoff run. And though it was only a game one, so similar to you yesterday, like I went for like a 5-hour walk.
You love those.
Picked up this jacket for $30 in Kensington Market.
Heat.
Shouts to Kensington Market. And then I was trying to avoid basketball
Incredible
too.
shout out. This guy just shout out a whole area of the city, man.
And then I went to
Shout out the beaches.
Hong Kong Bistro Cafe on
Your
Dundas.
favorite.
That's one of my faves to pick up some takeout.
What do you think? Best meal under $10 in the whole city?
Oh man, that baked pork chop on rice, fire. But then I was in there waiting for my takeout. It was like 15 minutes, and on the TV was Nets Celtics. And there was about 7 minutes left, so they gave me my takeout.
They have a TV and they have cable in there.
It's a low key good spot. So I picked up my food and I was like, "Hey, do you mind? I'm just gonna sit here and watch the rest of the game." So I tried to run away from basketball, but did get to watch the end of an absolute classic.
Yeah.
And I also forgot about Raptors playoff runs, like how quickly as frustrated you are about a loss that you bounce back the next day and talk yourself and feel optimistic about the next game again. And I think that's where we're at. So. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if they pull off the win tonight, and of course they're underdogs tonight, they're underdogs in the series, period. But like if they pull off the win tonight, all of a sudden you leave Philadelphia series at 1-1, you'd be really, really happy with that result, right? So you got to see what happens. And can we also be honest? Like, yes, the Raptors are down a couple of guys. It's not like the Raptors haven't been down a couple of guys in the season.
It's not like the Raptors haven't beaten the Sixers shorthanded this season. And like I said, it's not like we haven't seen them respond. So it's not an ideal scenario, but
But this is why it's a Nicky Nurse game. Because he's got to really decide who's in the starting lineup. That's the next big question, right? If Gary's unavailable, and the way it's looking right now, Gary's unavailable. And by the way, Gary did not play well in game one. Obviously, we found out after the fact that he was sick. So I'm like, okay, I cut him some slack there, obviously, and I give him a lot of credit for playing through that because he kind of looked out of it. Turns out he was just out of it, right? But, okay, if he's not going to play, I actually think that might help the Raptors get out to a better start defensively because what you're going to be able to do is put more size on the floor. You have a more natural matchup. I think, I thought OG did okay against Embiid, but Embiid also bullied him for, offensive rebounds, right away. I think he got, 3 in the first quarter, and it really changed the impact of the game. It was very clear right away that Embiid was hurting the Raptors physically. And as big as OG is, he's not going to be able to bang with Embiid like that. So you bring in some of your true centers who are more used to it, whether that's Precious stepping into the starting lineup. Even Kem starting into the starting lineup, I think will be, in this situation, if you're missing a couple of guys, I do trust Kem to come in and do a job.
Let's assume the 3 guys. Scotty obviously out. I think Thad and Gary are both doubtful right now. If those 3 guys are all missing, who's your starting lineup tonight?
Yeah, so I think I want to see. So you're missing 2 guys in the starting group. I think I want to see Chris Boucher in the starting group. I want to see Precious in the starting group. Now, if they go with Kem, I'm fine with that. It is what it is. To be honest, I think the way Nick looks at it is there's probably going to be 1 or 2 bad calls at the start of the game. Let Kem eat those. Let Kem tire out and beat. Because at the start of the game, obviously he's going to be most energetic. He's going to be the whole game, right? Let him he's your strongest guy. At least let him like bump him. You know, I don't think it's a great matchup ultimately, but you know, you at least soak up that first shift. Then Precious comes in with his speed and energy, and he's probably going to play the majority of the game. But what I don't want to see, by the way, is starting with Kem and Precious, because we saw Nick try that twice in the 2 regular season games, and I think that lineup was like minus 20, 25 or something like that.
Well, they were responsible for that 17-2 start.
They were
the Sixers, right?
Yeah, they were routinely getting off to bad starts because there's just not enough spacing on the floor when those 2 guys are out there. So at least you need Chris out there. And so, yeah, that's probably what I expect if you're saying that Gary and Scotty aren't available. And then Thad being unavailable off the bench really does suck, because you do need to bring some size off the bench. Whichever one of Kem or Precious doesn't start, they'll come off the bench. They'll be the primary guy. I think probably tonight you'll probably see a 7-man rotation. Who that 7th man is going to be very interesting to me. We've seen Nick trust Armani Brooks in that scenario, but do you trust him in a playoff series, right? But I think what Nick described at practice yesterday was like, you're probably going to see him giving 5 minutes to Yuta. You probably see him, and if Yuta does well, he might get the same 5 minutes in the second half. You might see him giving 5 minutes to Malachi, and if he does well, he might get another 5 minutes in the second half. You might, and it's the same thing with Armani. Like, it's hard to predict like which guys can specifically get that. But ultimately, if they don't really do well on their shift, then he'll probably try someone else. You know, I guess Delano's in the mix too. But to me, yeah, I think out of that group, I would try Yuta first. It's not just because he's Asian. Although people are
I love how you have to clarify.
I don't know, man. It's really upsetting.
I would play Utah. It's because he's Asian. Yeah.
No, not for me, man. It's because I'm a Raptor fan and I want the size and the shooting and the three and the defense. Everything else, right. I want the defense, right?
Me too.
Because what I'm worried about, if you put Armani or Malachi, because I saw some people saying, well, you put Malachi in there, you match Maxi's speed. First off, it's not a match. Second of all,
if you're gonna match Maxi's speed, wouldn't you bring in Delano?
Yes. And second of all, if you bring in, at least to me, if you're bringing Malachi Flynn, what the Sixers have done when the Raptors have played Malachi against this team is James Harden says, oh, that guy, let me get him on a screen and we're going to isolate and attack him one-on-one, nonstop. And the Raptors try to avoid those switches. Then you get open pick and pop threes and all that kind of stuff. So they hunt them right away. They'll probably do the same thing with Brooks as well. So to me, I would rather have a little bit more defense out there. I'm not expecting that much offense from that position anyway, from your 8th man, let's be real, or your 7th man. But yeah, I expect a tighter rotation. And as you mentioned, like, you're going to need your main guys to step up and be your main guys. And of course, that also begs the question of what happens when one of the guys fouls out? Because let's be real, in this series, someone's probably going to foul out. And then at that point, I'm like, I don't know.
Well,
if a guy fouls out in this game, I think the Raptors are guaranteed to lose.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest concern coming in to tonight's game, especially with them shorthanded, is you would expect that I think Nick is going to have one of those games where the starters are playing like at least 43 minutes tonight. And the only way that's going to stop them from doing that, like you mentioned, is if they get into the early foul trouble or if they foul out.
Yep.
So, and the other thing too, like everything was just so easy for the Sixers in game 1. You know, there was no resistance.
I agree. Yeah.
Like the Raptors did not make them feel uncomfortable at all. You know, the fans were cheering for Tyrese Maxey to get to 40 points.
Yeah, they were really stat chasing in a playoff game, which is like, again, I don't think it's a bad sportsmanship thing. It really means you're getting beat down because, like, you know, that's not the priority.
Listen, like you mentioned, we've seen LeBron drink beer, we've seen him practice fadeaways, like. Cheering for Tyrese Maxey.
This doesn't even make top 5. That's not even top 5
even top 10 probably, man. But yeah,
why was there a whole top 10 of game 1 losses?
Didn't Sportsnet put out a top 10 LeBron thing earlier this year? Like top 10 LeBron moments.
That wasn't us.
Against Toronto.
We're not affiliated.
Oh man, all right, beat those allegations.
We do this show. That's it.
But the other thing, like we talk about the main guys.
Yep.
You know, I think if I hear you on the React Pod tonight, Mr. React Pod.
Mr. Pod.
Mr. Pod. If I hear you tonight give the 3 stars to Fred, Pascal, and OG, I think the Raptors have a good chance.
Yeah.
They probably would have won.
Really hope so.
So if you're handing the 3rd star to, like, you know, Utah Watanabe for a nice 11-minute stretch in the 4th quarter.
I think I say 11 points. I got so excited.
And it's like.
Would have been a season high.
Man, that would be a participation trophy. But like Pascal, 24-7 and 3 in game 1. OG had 20 points, 7 rebounds. But I just didn't feel like they, like, you know, put their imprint on the game. You know, I didn't feel like any of those guys really, like, had that impact that you want. So I don't know. I guess my other question for you is, like, what are they going to change in terms of guarding Tyrese Maxey? Because that was a huge problem.
Listen, not to tell you to produce the show.
What's up?
We have a former NBA point guard coming on at
Mhm.
2 o'clock, and then we have a former NBA video assistant coming on.
Yeah,
So we're
so
gonna answer that Maxi question. I promise you.
yeah, Alvin
We have
Williams
2
and
minutes
Mo
left here.
Dakhil.
We have 2 minutes left before the break. 3 minutes really.
What's up?
It- I'm asking this because I saw a lot of conversations about this. Do you think Embiid was a little dirty?
No, I don't think so. I think
Was he reckless?
reckless still too strong for me. Here's the thing.
No. Reckless is not too strong for me.
Okay.
Reckless was very, very accurate. To
Here's
what
the
was
thing. If
happening.
you've watched Joel Embiid play basketball,
Yeah.
he does this a lot. Like
Yeah.
he's
he's huge and he plays really
he's
hard.
huge and he's willing to just swing his limbs. Is what I would say.
Yeah, I
So
agree,
if
I
people
agree.
want to say
But
reckless,
isn't that reckless?
sure. If people want to say reckless, fine. But like,
Okay.
I grew up like I watched. I mean, God, I hate dating myself. But like growing up, like I watched the
George
Shaqs.
You watched
No, like I
Wilt the Stilt. You watch Winning Time in real life?
How do you know more 70-centers than NHL superstars? What's going on? That's a quiz we got to do.
This guy's like, man, Artist Gilmore would do this every time.
Artist Gilmore versus Doug Gilmore. So no, like I watched Shaq like growing up, right? Like that was my favorite player, and that was during the time when they were just, the league was dominated by centers, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is what Shaq used to do.
Yeah,
This is what
exactly.
Shaq used to do. He would throw elbows in the paint. He would dunk on you and shove you, step over you, and all this stuff. At the end of the day, as much as people want to blame Joel Embiid, I'm with Nick Nurse. Like it's
No, fight
on,
back, man.
It's fight back, but also it's on the officiating. If
Yeah.
he is swinging 5 elbows and you're only calling 1, you know what? I don't actually have a problem with Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have
no,
a
that's true.
problem
I
with the
agree.
refereeing.
I agree.
Because if you're going to call it fair and sound, then the Raptors are going to be able to embrace their identity and play defense.
But he also does kind of like flop a little bit.
Of course.
Which is, I think that's the only thing that's annoying. Because look, if you're going to be physically dominant and you're going to throw bows around, or whatever, that's fine with me. Like it genuinely is fine with me.
I
Right?
call them
Literally,
bows.
Look, I was
Go
gonna say,
with
it's the
them
same with me.
bows.
Like for example, like I'm a big dude. I play, for example,
Oh, we've seen the clips.
Back in high school,
Oh,
I was on the Ultimate Frisbee team.
Dark
We're
days.
captain of the team, right? By the way, we had a really good run.
Emo days.
And Ultimate Frisbee at that time in high school was played co-ed. It probably still is, I think.
Yeah.
And one time I was just like running for a disc, and like bumped into a girl who was like half my size, and like they had to like call the ambulance. Like, she's fine. Like, I think she just had like a concussion or something.
Yes.
But like the ambulance drove onto the field and we had to stop the game.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is horrible. But also at the same time, I'm like, I didn't do anything wrong. Like it was just playing hard. That's part of playing sports. Like these things happen, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, I don't think Embiid did anything wrong or like it was anything purposeful about it. But at the same time, you do have to, again, fight back against that.
You
know?
do. You have to. You have to continue playing the way that you're playing, and probably ratchet up, the physicality a little bit. But listen, it really
This is why I asked Bobby, can you call Marc Gasol? I wasn't joking. Told him it's serious, man. Get him a visa.
It's on the officiating. It really is. I hate to sound like Will Lou, but it is on the officiating.
All right.
So we got Alvin Williams when we come back, and then Mo Dakhil will join us. So we got both of them in the second hour. We'll continue talking about Game 1 and look ahead to tonight's game in Philadelphia, 7:30 p.m.
There you go. I'm your host, Willow. You're listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Will Lou. A reminder, we're streaming live on Sportsnet's YouTube channel and airing live on Sportsnet 360, Monday to Friday between 1 and 3 p.m. Joined in the second hour by producer and co-host Alex Wong, and we are joined on the line by Sportsnet's very own Alvin Williams. Alvin, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
You know, I'm doing surprisingly well, even after that game one. I think I'm no more to like overreact to things, but you know, I think watching back on the film, I don't know if it was the same impression for you, but is it as bad as some fans are right now? Because I think a lot of fans are panicking, and I think they want to hear some words of wisdom from, you know, obviously a former Raptors legend.
Oh man, I wish I had some words of wisdom. It's all about a win with me. With the playoffs, man, it's a whole different beast. And people tend to overreact after one game, sometimes after one possession or one half. But, a lot of times that you come back, and the one thing you can say about the playoffs is every game is different. Every game takes a life of its own. There are different storylines. There are different people that step up. There are different strategies. There's adjustments. So it's never the same game. And it's always not a different outcome, but there's a different outlook going into the game from a players and coaches standpoint.
Right. Well, it was funny listening to Nick talking about the game, post game after game one, and he kind of mentioned something that perked my ears. Was that he said the Raptors might not necessarily have met the physicality of the playoffs. So for people who are listening at home, 99.9% of the world who have not played in the NBA before, have not played a playoff game before, can you explain to us, like, what is Nick talking about there in terms of meeting the physicality of the playoffs?
Well, physicality definitely steps up, because first and foremost, the defense steps up. And when you have, coaches and the opposing team knowing what you want to run, knowing as an individual what type of moves and what's your go-to moves, they like to beat you to the spot. And when a team defensively is trying to take advantage of that, they'll be more physical. They'll beat you to the spot. They'll be more physical through screens. They'll blow up screens, and you hear people say blow up plays. And you see that's pretty much guys running through screens and not allowing the offense to be comfortable. And offensively, what you have to do, you have to be patient, but you also have to meet force with force. You have to set a harder screen. You have to set a tougher screen. You have to fight through the screen. You can't be pushed off of the screen. You can't be pushed off of your move. So a lot of times offensively, what do you have to do? You have to move the ball a little bit more. You have to go about another way of scoring the basketball, not just, sometimes individually or your first option. You may have to get to your second or third or fourth option at times. That way you have to be more crisp. You have to be more concise with all of your movement. So that comes with the physicality, and I'm sure that's what Coach Nurse is talking about. And that's something you have to learn, and that's something you really have to adjust to in some moments of the playoffs.
Alvin, you talk about the physicality, and, we were talking in the first hour to, Nick Nurse had some comments about the officiating, and, we saw the game, Fred picking up his first foul in the first possession, 8 seconds in. When you're a player in that playoff environment, and you talk about each playoff game being different, like, how do you balance that in terms of, obviously playing a physical style, making the other team uncomfortable, but also being mindful of how the officiating and how the game is being called from game to game?
It's tough, man. And that's the disappointing part, because when you look at a key player like a Fred VanVleet, right? What is he? He's probably one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA. Like, as far as guarding his position, he has quick hands, he gets steals, he does all those things. And you look at he sparks the rest of the Raptors defense. So you look at the Raptors defense, they're very active, they're physical, they get deflections, they go for steals, they beat you up a bit. But when the referee is calling those calls early on in the game, now Fred, he can't be as aggressive. He can't cause those turnovers. And you look at the 76ers, they had 0 turnovers in the first half. And that's the huge part of the Raptors defense. So when their calls are being so tight at the beginning and your best players are getting early fouls, you look at a Chris Boucher, who helps the team defensively and offensively with rebounding. He gets into foul trouble. So now that's 2 aspects of the Raptors that they're missing: their defense and their second chance points, where they hurt the Sixers all year. So now you have to make those adjustments, and sometimes it make you a little softer. It makes you a little hesitant as a defender and as a defensive player. First and foremost, I can't get my second foul early on or my third foul in the first half. And now defensively, we don't have the same identity. So it really sucks, the fact that the whistle was loose early on, and now you have to make adjustments as a whole team in your philosophy.
Yeah, and, I think the Raptors, you would expect them to come out with a much better defensive effort because that was, quite frankly, unacceptable. Like, I think their general strategy of forcing Harden and Embiid to not play with the ball and sending to the ball, I think that's fine. But in terms of their execution, clearly it wasn't good enough when you look at the fact that they had 131 points on only 84 shots. Like, that's almost absurd. So for the team right now, after game one, just your sense of being around this team and speaking to so many of the players, like, what do you think the mood is in that locker room after that first game, or even the practice the day after? Do you think they're shaking about this? Do you think they're sort of mature enough to handle this? Like, what's your impression on how the team's feeling?
Definitely mature enough. I mean, you take the shape of your leader, that's Fred VanVleet, and you never see him rattled, right? You never see him let his emotions overtake him. He may get a little technical foul here or there, but he's always the calming force. So I believe that's the Raptors' makeup, and they've been in these positions before. The Raptors had the reputation of losing game ones, right? So it's not a big thing, and I think the temperament and the attitude of the team, you're ready to get back at it because you didn't give your best performance. You're a better team, and you just can't wait. And that's the best thing about the playoffs. You get a time to breathe, but then you get a time to get right back at it, and it's going to be very intense. So it's one of those things where you don't get too high in the playoffs, and you definitely don't get too low in the playoffs because, once again, every game is different. And you can't, if you go into today's game thinking about the last game, you're going to already be in the back. You're going to be already in the back of the race. So you got to just continue to be positive, trust your game plan, and just do everything that you're supposed to do better than the other team, harder, with more intention, more purpose, and just more physical. And that's the biggest thing. Strategies and all that stuff, that's cool. Adjustments, that's cool. But if you don't meet the physicality and you don't come with force, then you're gonna lose the basketball game pretty much.
Speaking of the defense, we talked so much last week when we were previewing the series about how the Raptors were going to defend Joel Embiid and James Harden. And, I thought they did an adequate job given the circumstances in game one, but clearly Tyrese Maxey, went off for 38 points and the Raptors just didn't have an answer for him. When you're looking ahead to game two, what do you think are things that the Raptors are going to throw at him to kind of make him uncomfortable a little bit?
Are you talking about Tyrese Maxey?
Yeah.
It's tough, right? When you have somebody like Joel Embiid, and then you have another guy like a James Harden, somebody's going to be free. And don't forget about Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris had a big game, and he's been inconsistent all year for the Sixers. But he's a very good player, and he's a third or fourth option of that team. So it's hard to say this is what we're going to do against Tyrese Maxey when you have an MVP that you really have to concentrate on. And that's why people looked at the 76ers as a championship caliber team because of those pieces. So, the Sixers are being who they played the way, the Philadelphia fans and the NBA thought they could play. Now it's just up to the Raptors, making sure their defensive presence is impactful. So I don't know how much you can do with a Tyrese Maxey who's feeding off of the other guys. He's not coming down and having the ball in his hand initially and then just generating offense. He's getting it off of kickouts. He's getting it off of, concentration on the other players and then transition. And then he starts to roll. And now it's a little too late because he's a very good player too. So I think you stick to the script and go with your philosophies of making sure Joel Embiid and James Harden don't kill you, but you make sure you play those other guys honest as well.
Right. And, I think that's one of the bigger things when you look at how the Raptors play versus how Philadelphia plays. Like, because they have those two guys in Harden and in Embiid, like, it does make the situation for the team much easier. Like, I was, even looking at, Alvin, your playoff debut, Raptors against the Knicks. Unfortunately, the Raptors lost game one there. No surprise, I guess. That's just like the history of the team going back 2 decades.
It started with Alvin.
Exactly.
We're blaming Alvin for this game one
I'm not
curse.
blaming Alvin because Alvin had 19 and 8 assists, And I'm sure the game plan for the Knicks was we're going to throw everything we can at Vince. Vince had 13 points, 5 of 22 shooting. Like, there is an adjustment to be made there. It's kind of honestly similar to this game, where Embiid had a poor shooting performance, Harden had a poor shooting performance, but, you have other guys on the team who can step up and beat you. And I think that that's something that for the Raptors side, like, they don't have that gravitational guy who's going to pull extra defenders to them all the time. Pascal's the closest one to it. And I think he did do a good job of that, but not to the same degree as Embiid and Harden. And so it's a little bit harder for the Raptors supporting cast to sort of step up on that front. But, when you think about it, though, it was also a little bit disappointing to see certain guys not step up for the Raptors in that third role, because the Raptors have guys not like a Tyrese Maxey, probably a little bit lower level, but Gary Trent Jr. can also go off for a big score, and I understand he was sick, but, I thought OG probably could have given you a little bit more scoring based on the fact that they were helping off of him. Alvin, when you were looking at, like, the supporting cast for the Raptors yesterday, outside of, Pascal and Fred, did those guys get enough shots, or did they play well enough around the Raptors' star two players?
It was a bad game, and I think we try to figure things out, and sometimes it's as simple as the guys didn't play as well as you would like them to play. Starting on the defensive end, I thought Pascal could have been more aggressive. They're going to need him to be more aggressive because, typically what you find now, and especially as the playoffs go forward, there is that guy. There's that guy that is going to attract the double teams. He's going to have to make plays for others. He's not going to necessarily be efficient from the field, but he's the guy that you can put the ball in his hands and he can go get you a good opportunity to score, or someone else. And I think Pascal, matter of fact, I know Pascal is that person. And I think he's going to have to be more aggressive, but I also believe that he's going to have to be put in situations to be more aggressive, because he's not going to just come down and be able to isolate and do things like that. So he's going to have to make an adjustment individual, personally, and the coach is going to have to help him as well. And I also like to think that other players will have to be used more deliberately, because somebody like an OG who has matchups, who has different advantages, and I think you have to seek those out, because once again, you're going to have the ball in your best player's hand for the most part of the game. And if you look at the Raptors when they had their most success, they went with the lineup with their best players. They shortened up the lineup and they took off. Now in the playoffs, you're going to have the ball in your best players' hands and have them go to work. And then everybody else can feed off of that. You guys mentioned the Toronto Raptors back when I was playing. Vince Carter was the guy with the basketball in his hands. Everybody was trying to stop Vince Carter. And now that made my job much easier. That made Antonio Davis' job easier. That made Mo Pete's job much easier. But once we had that player that could do that, and I believe Pascal Siakam's going to have to be that player and have the ball in his hand for the most part of the game to have others free up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that you saw some good moments of synergy between Pascal and Scotty at the start of the game. Scotty got off to a really nice start. Obviously, he got injured, which is unfortunate. But you saw in the third quarter as well, I think Pascal set up Fred for 3 threes, and that's when Fred started to get going a little bit. Unfortunately, it was at the same time where Tyrese Maxey was like single-handedly outscoring the team at points. He was really going off, so didn't really eat into the lead. But that's probably where the best offense came from, was when the ball was in Pascal's hand, possession after possession. And I think he'll get used to that. I think we've seen that over the course of the season. About the starting lineup tonight and just how Nick might manage it. So we've already talked about this earlier in the show, but Gary, he's doubtful right now. He wasn't himself in game one. He's been dealing with a non-COVID illness. Scotty has already been ruled out. He's got the ankle and a walking boot. Obviously, we saw that was a very unfortunate injury that happened with him. And then Thad Young also hyperextended his thumb on his left hand, his shooting hand. So that's going to impact him, but, maybe there's a chance he plays. If those 3 guys are out, Alvin, like, first off, who's in the starting 5 for you? Because you got to replace 2 starters, and you probably at least have to dip into the bench for one more guy, right? Because maybe if the Raptors can go with the 7-man rotation, they'd be pretty happy with it. But as of right now, they kind of have 6 guys that they could comfortably feel confident in, but who is that 7th guy for you? So who's going to the starting 5? Who's the 7th guy?
Man, I don't get paid enough to come up with these decisions.
Come on, man.
I don't. You know what, man? I don't know. I don't know. I honestly don't know, because you're looking at, from a defensive perspective, Gary Trent Jr. brings that ability to defense and the shooting ability. But I'm just not sure if you just go with a totally big lineup. The thing that's tricky is Scotty's not in there because Scotty does so. You can put Scotty at the point. You can play him at the center. So like it's just like who do you put in there as that ball handler? You got Fred there, of course, but I'm not answering your question. I'm dancing around, but the music is running out. So my dance moves is going, but I really don't know. I guess if you can go with Precious, and hopefully defensively he can handle it. But you have Fred, you have Pascal, you have OG, and you have Precious, and Kim was there. So I mean, you could go that way, but you're going to really have to be creative if there's no Gary Trent Jr. or Thaddeus Young. And then you have Chris Boucher. I love Chris Boucher coming off the bench and the energy he provides. So I wouldn't want to take him out of that role. Yeah, no, it's tough. It's tough. Like obviously, goes without saying, if you lose 3 rotation guys in game 1, you're going to have a hard time replacing them. You know, my suggestion was Nick's probably going to have to shuffle through and give guys like 5 minutes, like give Armani Brooks 5 minutes, see if he can knock down a shot. You know, he provides a little bit more length defensively as compared to Malachi, who, you know, could probably match Maxey for speed, but then Harden's probably going to ISO against him, and there's a huge mismatch there. And I mean, I guess you can go to Utah as well, but, you know, a lot of times he comes in, and even though he plays hard, it doesn't seem to impact the game all that much. So guys are going to have to step up collectively, but really it's going to be the main 3, right? Like when you really break it down, you're going to need Fred, Pascal, and OG to really step up and be like a big 3 for you tonight in order to take this win. And that's going to be a little tricky, man. But, you know. Sure, for sure. And those guys can step up. I think the one thing when you talk about defensively, to me, James Harden obviously is not the Houston Rockets James Harden. Yeah. And I feel like the Raptors helped a little bit too much off of other players for James Harden. I don't see James Harden blowing by guys. I don't see him finishing over guys. He's looking for fouls. The things that he was very effective when he played for Houston, getting to the line and finishing. You know the Raptors are keeping him on his right hand, staying on his left hand, keeping him going right. And I'm playing him, and I'm making him be that 40-point scorer. Can James Harden still be that 40-point scorer and 15 assists, getting to the lines 20 times? I want him to be that person again if I'm the Raptors. I don't necessarily want, but I want to see if he can. And I won't free up a Tyrese Maxey, and I won't free up these guys in the perimeter hitting shots and threes, because that's what James Harden is now. He's prying, he's playing around, he's dribbling, and then he's finding guys. Yep. To me, I'm staying in front of him. I think the Raptors do a very good job of staying in front of him and making him finish over top, and he struggles with that right now at this stage of his career or this season. So I would not pay so much attention to doubling or showing so much help on James Harden. I would keep him one-on-one and let him and see what he can do, and make sure the Tyrese Maxey's, they have bodies connected to him, the Danny Greens and Yang and these guys and Tobias Harris, and then see where we go from there. Yeah, no, it's going to be a challenge. Alex?
Yeah, what's up?
You got a prediction? What's going on? What you doing over there, Alex? What you doing, my man?
I'm taking in all the wisdom from the two of you. Actually, the one more thing I wanted to ask you, Alvin, too, is we were talking about this earlier, and I think some fans had a reaction to this because of the physicality in game 1, and we saw, you know, an elbow to Scotty's face before he got hurt. You know, Kem had to go in concussion protocols, and you know, Nick was talking after the game about how, you know, Joel Embiid threw 5 elbows and was called for 1. You know, when you look at the way Joel Embiid plays, like, do you feel like there's a little recklessness there, or do you think fans are just kind of overreacting to that from game 1?
Yeah, it's an overreaction. You know, if Joel Embiid didn't play like that, then we would be calling him soft. We would say he's not Embiid. Like, he has to play like that, especially when you have smaller people just around you. It's kind of like you're at a park or something, and there's a bunch of gnats around you. You just never can get comfortable. You're going to start swatting at the gnats, no matter how patient you try to be. But that's what Joel Embiid is. And you know what? I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing a big man being physical. And I also enjoy the gamesmanship. I enjoy Nick Nurse right there. All he's doing is bringing awareness so he can start getting some of those calls. That's the chess part of the playoffs and, you know, putting it out there. So Joel Embiid is doing exactly what he needs to do. as far as how he's going to help his team. And the Raptors are doing what they need to do is just continue to be around them, make sure they feel his body, make sure they give him different looks. And then you deal with what you deal with. If it's an elbow, don't be afraid to shoot another elbow back. I mean, it's one of those things. These are the playoffs, and this is basketball, and this is competition. So you have to figure out how you can be effective as well.
Yeah, no, that's what I liked seeing from Scotty too. Was even though he got called for the flagrant, remember early in that third quarter where he was chasing Maxey around, and he kind of like made sure to deliver a little bit of a shot to Tyrese.
Yeah.
It was like listen, this is playoff basketball. This is like, I don't know, this is not for kids. Like, I don't know what else to say. Like, you play, Embiid plays hard. I respect that about him. I do. I think sometimes he'll the thing that's hard for a lot of fans to accept is like, so he'll deliver the hits, but then if you bump into him at any point, he'll fall over. He'll decry, and try to get the call from the refs. I get that that's also gamesmanship, But at the same time, for a lot of people, it's like, okay, how could a guy that big be falling like this? But ultimately, this is the game. This is the challenge you signed up for, and I think that we shouldn't be too worried about it, Alvin. So appreciate you. Thanks for joining us on the show, and don't count the Raptors out, man. It's not like they haven't won shorthanded this season.
I'm not counting them out at all because once again, you know that the Raptors are coming back. You know they're going to be prepared. And that's the biggest thing, being prepared. I remember one playoff experience, my first one actually playing, as you guys mentioned, game one. I just remember Jeff Van Gundy, I would call a play, and he would call a play. He would tell the Knicks where to be before we got into our set.
Damn.
And that was the craziest thing when you're dealing about preparation, and it makes you fearful of trying to run a play because they knew it already. So I know the Raptors are going to be in that position. They're going to be prepared, and I know they have the leadership and they have the players that's going to go out there and go and play their butts off. So when you have that element, you're always going to have a chance.
Appreciate you, Alvin. Thanks for the insight. And man, I wish we could have had you out there tonight. Because we do need some help off the bench. Come on, man.
No, then we wouldn't. If I was out there, we would not have a chance.
Okay, all right, Alvin. I appreciate you, man. Take care.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Oh man,
Alvin Williams, Sportsnet, Raptors legend. We even mentioned that next series. Him hitting the jumper.
Yeah,
20 feet out.
Yeah. What else do you remember from that?
These are all things that I had to research because I was just coming to Canada. But ultimately,
do you remember when they were down 2-1 and Vince had 3 terrible games and he started game 4 driving down the lane with a one-handed dunk over Latrell Sprewell? That was when the series turned around. Yeah.
I saw that. Hold on. There's so many great games. I'll let you pick one. Like can't disrespect the Godfather series like that.
By the way, is that your LeBron voice?
Yeah. You're 19, baby.
Oh man, Alvin couldn't even pick a starting lineup, man.
I mean, listen,
We're
it's tough. I would love to be in those coaches meetings right now. Nick Nurse sitting down with the assistant Nate Bjorkgren
and his 6 players.
And no, Nick might have more assistants right now than players.
Oh, not even close.
Yeah,
not even close. It's a 1-to-1. So
no, we're it's how they talk about classroom sizes of like how many kids versus how many teachers. It's a 1-to-1.
I will
for assistants to players tonight, man.
Yeah, I will say I know Alvin mentioned too that hey, want to keep Chris Boucher, because on the bench because he's been so good coming off the bench. I don't think you can think that way tonight. I'm with you.
I need him on the floor. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I think
he's probably gonna have to play 35 minutes.
I'm with you. I think start Precious and Chris.
Yeah.
With the Raptors' big 3. I think you can't let this game get away in the first quarter.
Well, I also think about stylistically, what kind of game do you want to play?
Right.
Because Nick was talking about before the series, this is going to be a slugfest. It wasn't a lot of slugging. I mean, there was a lot of slugging, but it was a one-way kind of slugging, okay? Embiid slugged a lot of the Raptors guys, which, again, is fine. The only issue is if you're going to let him play with physicality, the Raptors have to be able to respond with physicality. That's all. And if the physicality is Embiid elbows Cam on a rebound and he gets knocked out, he gets knocked over, and he's on the floor and he has to go get checked for a concussion, that's fine with me because, that's a rebound. You fight in there, big guys are in there, especially Embiid. Might be the biggest player in the playoffs. But if at the same time Fred is just pressuring up on Maxey and he you're calling a foul on that, then all of a sudden I'm like, all right, bro, what are we doing here? We can't be playing a game if that's the scenario. However, if you're thinking about stylistic of the game, I think the Raptors probably will do better in a slow-paced game, like a 92-90 kind of game. Kawhi hitting a shot at the end with the 4
What's
bounces.
going on, man?
I'm trying to generate some enthusiasm.
No,
baby.
they're gonna have to muck it up tonight. If they're gonna come out victorious, it's gonna be an unwatchable game. So what we need is an unwatchable.
I would
game.
love a hard fought, low scoring game because, by the way, you talk about the Raptors having such a bad record in game ones. They have a pretty good record in game twos, and almost always, universally, thinking back to the Kyle and DeMar Raptors, they would lose game one, be a huge bit of disappointment. There'll be like 2 days off, and then they'll play, and then they'll win like a really gritty game two. So
Yeah.
I will take that right now, a gritty game two. But we're also going to take a quick break right here. You see that? I'm your host, Wolu. You're not impressed. That's fine. I'm your host, Wolu. That's Alex Wong. You're listening to The Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590, The Fan. I'm your host, Wolu. You're listening to The Raptors Show on Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
I'm the lethal weapon. I do not finish second. I'm the lethal weapon. I'm the lethal weapon.
We are talking about one of the best franchises of the past decade. Shows that Adam Silver. My 9 to 5 is a 1 to 3.
Wow.
Feels good, man. Feels good, man. Said Kawhi would stay. Said Kawhi would stay.
He stayed in our hearts. He stayed in our hearts.
Not mine.
I'm the lethal weapon. I do not finish second. I'm the lethal weapon. I'm the lethal weapon.
We are talking about one of the best franchises of the past decade. Shows that Adam Silver.
Which is the scene or the moment or the phrase or the quote you like more from the movie? Oh, from The Godfather. So many different phrases.
I'm the lethal weapon. I do not finish second. I'm the lethal weapon. I'm the lethal weapon.
So many different phrases.
I suppose, Bryce.
So many different phrases.
I suppose, Bryce. I suppose, Bryce.
I do not finish second. I'm the lethal weapon. I'm the lethal weapon.
Welcome back to the Raptors Show, powered by DoorDash on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. I'm your host, Wolu. We are joined in this final segment by Dakhil, one of the smartest people on basketball Twitter. Definitely find lots and lots of video analysis, lots of discussion over the Spain pick and roll. He's also the founder of The Jump Ball at thejumpball.net. You can also find his work at Bleacher Report and The Athletic. Mo, it's been a while, man. How you doing?
It's been a long while, but you know what, Will? I had never had a host with such a soothing voice in the intro with the music and everything. Like, I feel very serene and zen right now.
Yeah, we're trying to calm Raptor fans down because what they saw in game one was very, I don't know, like a lot of people were very upset after that game. I think obviously the Raptors lost. They got blown out a little bit. Tyrese Maxey went crazy. And also, you know, they lost their beloved rookie, Scotty Barnes. And of course, you know, you can understand people being a little upset. But this is part of the reason, you know, we had to bring you on today. And obviously, throughout the playoffs, by the way. I don't know how this is the first time you've been on the Raptors Show. You were on the Raptors Over Everything podcast all the time. But one of the reasons to bring you on, because you look at the film objectively, you look at it impartially, and I think that, you know, I want to hear your thoughts on just like the series and basically how game one opened. So let's start with the defense. What went wrong for the Raptors on defense? There's a lot, I imagine.
I mean, yes and no. Like, the game plan actually worked in the sense of, hey, you kept Joel Embiid to 5 of 15 shooting, right? James Harden 6 of 17. The focus on the game plan was focusing on those two guys. The problem was you didn't focus on everybody else. And what happens is all the coverage was focused on them. So when Harden was able to kick it over to Maxey on the weak side, he's able to attack and get downhill with nobody in front of him, right? And I think that's the first thing. So he just has like open driving lanes. And we've seen it with guys. Once a guy gets hot, that rim just gets bigger and bigger. And everything that happened from that point on really just sort of coalesced. And it wasn't just Maxey. He gets all the big praise and everything, but Tobias Harris also killed you at 28 points. You know, when those two guys combined for 64 points, your odds are you're probably going to lose that game. And, you know, it's very difficult with that. So I think the defensive game plan worked. It just maybe wasn't the right game plan for this game. You need to have a little bit more attention on Maxey, on Harris, how you're going to rotate to those guys out of the Harden and Embiid pick and rolls. You got to kind of start looking to adjust now.
Yeah, and I think when you're thinking about the adjustments, right, there's no way the Raptors could not put two guys on Joel Embiid. Like, it's just not possible, especially with their personnel. Part of the construct of this roster is they don't have the true center. To be honest, true centers probably need help against Joel Embiid as well. So it's not like you just automatically have a 7-footer and you're going to be okay against Joel. He's that good. He's a front runner for MVP, or at least top 3. You know, you're going to send 2 to Joel Embiid. But I guess the question for the series is, is Nick Nurse and the coaching staff more comfortable taking less help off of James Harden and keeping guys more at home? And I wanted to hear your thoughts on that. Would you, if you were in that coaches meeting right now, and you've been probably in plenty of them in the past, like, what would your advice be to Nick Nurse after seeing the tape of game one with regards to how to handle James Harden versus how you're going to leave other guys open?
I mean, before we even get to it, just understand, going into the game one coaches meeting after losing is one of the worst feelings, because you just know, like, man, this meeting is going to be forever. You know, you're going to sit in there and this is going to be a long, long time.
Yeah.
And you're going to debate your base. And for me, because I always think with my stomach, I'm like, are we going to eat during the meeting or do I need to get a protein bar? Like, that's just my issues. And this is probably why I'm not in the league anymore, is I'm always thinking for food. But what you're thinking about in this game and how you want to adjust, I think I almost disagree with you a little bit, Will. I may not even send a second guy to Embiid. Embiid's going to get his. Embiid's going to get his, right? Like, he didn't play that well, 5 of 15. He got to the line a ton, you know, got 11 free throws, and foul trouble was a big problem for the Raptors in this game one. But let him get his and shut everybody else down would almost be my philosophy, right? And from that, you can kind of build off of that. Make it so that Harden can't go off. Make it so Maxey isn't getting clear driving lanes. Don't give up easy open threes to Tobias Harris, to George Niang, to Danny Green. I think those are the things you want to kind of keep an eye out for. So it's almost like sometimes if you have a dude that's just so unstoppable, don't try to stop him. Stop everybody else.
Hmm.
Because can Joel Embiid beat you just by himself? Like, he might win you a game. I don't think he can win you a series. And I think that's going to be the interesting wrinkle that we're going to have to see. In terms of how you guard Harden, I think they did a decent job on him. The bigger issue was they let the Sixers get out in transition over and over again. Like, I
Okay.
don't know the last time I saw any team with 29 fast break points in a game.
Especially in a playoff setting. Like, I think Maxey, as good as he played, he had 11 points on the fast break. And I'm not saying you could take all those away because he's like a one-man fast break. He shot out of the cannon. He's very athletic. He has really nice reverse finishes and all this other stuff. But, like, come on. A team should have 11 fast break points in a playoff game, not one player. And so what do you think went wrong into that? Like, why did the Raptors struggle so much with their transition? Because they're usually a pretty good transition defense team.
Yeah, I think it starts with their offense wasn't really good, right? Was really struggling offensively. The Sixers were able to take advantage of the misses, and their attitude was as soon as we catch it, we're going. Run the floor. Run on them. And, I mean, they just beat the Raptors in every facet of the game. So I think they got to focus. The important thing to keep a team out of transition, you got to score. Right? Make it so that they got to take the ball out of the net and you got to get back defensively. Doesn't mean you're not going to give up a bucket off of a make or anything like that, but it gives you a better chance to get back defensively, get settled, and lock in. So the besides just the basic coverage and what they might change, the transition defense is going to be the second thing I'm looking for in this game tonight. Like, how do they play? How will they make sure that they get enough buckets offensively, and are they getting back in transition? Are they going to send fewer guys to the offensive glass and make sure they have more floor balance? So even when they miss a shot, that Sixers are at least going to see 3 guys defensively already back.
Yeah. And that's going to be very interesting too, because for Nick, like, that's what he's done all season is he sent, 3 guys to the glass. Like, he will just routinely do this. Is one of the reasons why the Raptors were successful this year, not by necessarily playing great offense, but by playing more offense than the opponent. They always win the possession battle there, and they lost it the other night. Yeah, I mean, first off, can we just start with why were the Sixers so effective on the defensive glass? Because I think for people thinking about rebounding, like, it's just sort of like, well, guys box out, guys are more physical, they maybe keep more guys back, and that's it, right? But I think probably it's a little bit more complicated than that, or maybe it's not. I don't know. But why do you think the Sixers are so effective at limiting the Raptors' offensive rebounding game?
I mean, it's a rarity too. They're not really a good rebounding team in general. Besides Joel Embiid, it tends to fall apart. But I think what happened is they really kind of focused in as a team, going like, we're just going to make sure we get every opportunity, and nobody was leaking out for the Sixers. Everybody was making sure they corralled and got the rebound first before running out. And I think those opportunities is really what kind of led to it. It's not so much like there's just a great X's and O's explanation to it, Will, just a matter of just like they use their size and really just went after it. And a lot of the shots that they were getting, I mean, they were able to just kind of keep the Raptors out of the paint, and then from there go. And granted, the paint points are pretty close. They still forced the Raptors to take 33s, which the Raptors do shoot a lot of threes, but if you're not making them, that opens up the opportunity for long rebounds, and from there they can run out.
Right. To the point of the Raptors offensively, their overall numbers were fine. I think. I think if you told me the Raptors shot 49% from the field and they hit 40% from 3, and to be honest, this team shooting 83% from the free throw line is very good. Having 27 assists is very good. Turnovers are fairly low, only 8. But like, to me, does it not seem like the Raptors missed an opportunity there to emphasize some more of their strength? Which, like, if they have one advantage in this series, it probably is Pascal Siakam. Like, there's not a natural defender on the Sixers who should be able to guard him. He should probably draw double teams and stuff like that. And of course, he can play out of there. Like, what were your takeaways from the Raptors in terms of how they approached offensively, especially with regards to Pascal's usage?
Yeah, I think, you got to kind of just ramp it up a little bit more with Pascal. I think what you want to do is you want to make it so that the Sixers decide to put Embiid on him, because then that opens up the paint, right? Like, now
Okay.
Embiid's
Now
not
you
able
can
to clog
offensive
the
rebound.
lane. Offensive rebound. You can not only that, but it's easier to attack the paint where Siakam's going to be able to hit a cutter, and it's not Joel Embiid coming to block a shot. It's Tyrese Maxey. Massive size difference, right? Like it's just a simple thing, right? Keep the big man out of the paint. So I think the important thing is making sure Siakam gets off and gets going. But the other thing too is you're not going to survive another night of Gary Trent Jr. going 2 of 11.
Oh, yeah, he was
right. Like
he was sick yesterday or in the game, so that I guess so. But he was I thought he was actively bad on both ends.
Yeah, and he was sick, so he has a reason to be.
Yeah.
But also maybe at a certain point, if he's sick, you don't play him 26 minutes, right? Like if Fred VanVleet gets into foul trouble early, like your top shooters, the guys you're really kind of counting on to make shots and really stretch the floor, weren't hitting early on, and I think that really caused the problem for the Raptors. And then off the bench, it's not a ton of great guards. Coming off the bench to kind of relieve you in that. And now you have
no great guards.
A couple of questions. Yeah, I mean, I was trying to be nice.
Oh, okay,
but you just don't have the guys you need off the bench and that to make up for it. So if Trent's not hitting shots, if Van Vliet has a cold night, then it all falls on Siakam, and now it becomes easier to defend the team.
Sure, yeah.
And that's where the issues and challenges come from for the Raptors. And now you add in the injuries with Barnes, with Thaddeus Young, and we don't know if Trent's feeling better or not. Like it makes game 2 a lot more difficult.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think obviously the Raptors' injuries really start to complicate that, because I think the one guy who did have a really nice start was Scotty Barnes. And I think so much focus has been put into the injury, and rightfully so. It was gruesome, and you feel bad for him. He's like such a, I don't know, he's like a sweet puppy. He's really eager, hugging everybody all the time. He's everybody's favorite Raptor player. And then to see him go down and him having to get helped off the floor, it's genuinely traumatic to see for a lot of people. But before that injury, he had 15 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, was shooting well, cutting well. What were some of your takeaways from Scotty's playoff debut?
I thought it was good. I thought it was a very good rookie typical playoff experience, right? Like, starts out well. Obviously, we know how it ends with the injuries, but it was a good first quarter, 3 of 4 from the field. And then he only gets 2 more shots the rest of the game. Like, you got to be more involved. You got to be more active. You got to get him more opportunities. Him having 6 shots with 31 minutes, that's not enough.
Is that on him, or is that on, the Raptors offense in general? Because I think that's been a conversation that's been had here as well. It's like, I know Nick always says, hey, Scotty, we want you to have 16, 17 shots. We want you to shoot the ball. We want you to be aggressive. But then all of a sudden at the same time, I'm like, I don't also see a lot of actions called for him to have the ball to do that as well. So
it's my one gripe with Nick Nurse is they don't really have a half court offense, right? And so it's if you want Scotty Barnes to get 16 shots, you as a coach need to put him in position to get 16 shots, right? And he does a great job. He almost had a triple double, right? With 10 rebounds and 8 assists. Like, he's going to dime it out. He's going to find guys and things like that. He's a very unselfish player, but you need to put him in positions where, hey, we're going to get you the ball here, and that's for you to shoot it.
Right.
And I think that's kind of the clear-cut stuff you need to start having if you're Nick Nurse. And I just don't think, in general, with his offense, it's not really his half-court offense is never really geared towards setting up any actions for particularly getting guys going. Like, even the stuff with Siakam, it's give the ball to Siakam at the top, let him go, right? It's there's no real actions. There's no cross screen and a pick the picker and see if we can get the attack here from there. It's really just kind of almost roll it out. Nick Nurse is a defensive genius. I think offensively, there's still some stuff I want to see on that offensive end of the court from his coaching that I just think would really help the Raptors as a whole.
Yeah, you're not enjoying the little dribble handoff, pitch it back and forth that do at the start.
Only so much.
At the
you
start
can only
of
do it so many
possession.
times before you you can't. You do it every time. It's not really a surprise anymore.
Listen, you can get like a switch, and there's something that comes out of that. There's not nothing. You organize the team a little bit, but also sometimes I'm like, why is Pascal dribble pitching it to like OG, who's going to hand it back to Fred, who's going to hand it back to Pascal 30 feet from the hoop? None of them are going to shoot the ball in that scenario. I'm like, yo, can we just skip past this a little bit?
My favorite is when we do all that, you burn time on the shot clock, and you ended up in the same exact spot where you started. Yeah. And I'm always just like, couldn't just Pascal just had dribbled right to that spot, and you still have 20 seconds on the shot clock instead of now you have 12? Yeah, you didn't do anything. So I think sometimes it's a lot of fluff for nothing.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair critique and everything like that. I think in the starting lineup, and I think this probably speaks to like what style of game the Raptors should be trying to play here against Philadelphia. But it was interesting because Nick said in the week leading up to Game 1 was like, this is going to be a slugfest. But of course, Game 1 was nothing close to a slugfest. Like the two teams combined for 242 points. That's not a slugfest, especially not in a playoff setting. Like I feel like, and I wanted to hear your thoughts on this. I feel like it probably favors the Raptors, especially now that they're short a couple of bodies, that if they can manage to pull it into like a classic Eastern Conference type of playoff game, like thinking back to Chicago versus Milwaukee yesterday, maybe not that ugly, but like if they can grind it out a little bit, I think that probably like they're not going to outscore the Sixers in some sort of like high scoring kind of offense. They just don't have the firepower to do that. But defensively, if you get it close, I think that's probably their best chance to win Game 2. What are your thoughts on that? Like the style of play the Raptors want to aim for, especially Game 2 and beyond.
They have to junk it up. They have to make this as ugly as possible, right? They got to be able to slow down the Sixers. You got to make them guess a little bit what they're doing offensively. I mean, the Sixers themselves, give them credit. Besides transition, this was the fastest I've seen them play in the half court. They were fast in the half court, moving and cutting and things like that. I was very impressed with that. It was not what I was expecting from them. And I picked the Raptors to win the series. So, I thought we would see a little bit more concerted effort. I'm not too worried yet. Always game ones are game ones. It's why it's a 7-game series. So you have time to start figuring these things out. But they got to slow the game down. They got to junk it up defensively. They got to mix in different coverages, keep the Sixers on their feet, guessing as to what's coming. And I mean, easier said than done. And part of it's is out of their hands, but they got to find a way to stay out of foul trouble. Can't get into early foul trouble with the Sixers, right? And I think all they got to do is hang around.
I agree.
Close game down the stretch, I picked the Raptors.
Why is that though?
Because I don't trust the Sixers at the end of games. Right. I think that's really the thing. At the end of close games, I think James Harden tends to start to wave off Joel Embiid, and then it's in his hands more. I haven't been impressed with his run with the Sixers so far this season. I think it's a good opportunity for you. If you keep it close, you can steal it. And that's all you got to do is try to just keep it close so that in the last 2 minutes, you give yourself a chance to win it.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mo, appreciate you. We're going to have you on the show lots throughout the playoffs. Go follow Mo Dakhil on Twitter at Mo _Dakhil. No, Mo Dakhil _ NBA. Sorry.
You're gonna send them to somebody else.
No, I'm sorry, bro. No. Mo Dakhil _ NBA. I love the people who are _ NBAs. That's how you know you're a true hooper on Twitter is when you have the _ NBA.
Well, I just figured I did work in the NBA at some point, so I should just make sure that's there.
Oh, there's plenty of people who haven't worked in the NBA but have the _ NBA.
Yes,
NBA
I know.
So, appreciate you, Mo.
Thank you.
It's Mo Dakhil, former video coordinator, I believe, with the Spurs.
He was with the Clippers too, right? A little bit. Yeah. Oh, Mo's great. Add him to the rotation.
I'm surprised that I didn't suggest it earlier. That's a my bad for me. But no, I think, look, what he said is very important because, look, I think for me, not only his experience as a video guy, not only the fact that he's been in a lot of these scenarios before, but to have an objective look at it, right? Because for us, like, we're always talking about, this is the Raptors show, literally. We're talking to tons of people in the Raptors organization. We'll talk to, like, on the Sixers side, we got a little bit of it with talking to Danny last week and talking to Harrison and stuff like that. But, like, quite frankly, like, none of that is quite balanced. I think to get that objective view of it was good. And it's good to know that Mo picked the Raptors and that I think he still has confidence in the team.
Yeah, I think he said a lot of things that I think we were going through as well, right? Like the game's going to need to be ugly tonight. And I do like the fact that he said, if you get it to the fourth quarter and it's a close game, that he would lean towards the Raptors. Feel the same way. I think the Sixers, people know them as there's a lot of front runner mentality there, right? Like it's all good when you're up 20 or when you're beating the Raptors and you're doing your airplane celebrations. And
that's
Tyrese
the one
Maxey.
thing Embiid didn't pull out was the airplane, I think.
Yeah.
If he pulls out the airplane, I would feel a lot better.
Yeah.
But so far, not yet.
No, listen.
He just pulled out the airplane when he elbowed people.
Oh, man.
But, listen, it's all good. He played hard. He played hard.
No, but
he played hard.
Listen, I know the Raptors are going to come back with a way better effort. They're going to fight. I guess at the end of the day, biggest concern is that they're shorthanded. But listen, just get this one game. Get this one game. You know, you go into Philly, you want to just get one, get the split, and it's going to be a long series. So I think if they can get this tonight, I feel good. I just threw out all kinds of playoff cliches. Wanted to ask you before we run, what is your favorite playoff cliche? Because there are a lot of them. You know, I think every time the Raptors lose one, you know, like to remind people it's the first to four and not the first to one. You know, sometimes coaches like to say, you know, it's just about who wants it more. Are there other ones? Like, do you have a favorite, or I guess least favorite?
My least favorite one is the series doesn't start until a team loses at home. What the hell does that mean?
I've seen the Raptors lose series after game ones too many times to
the series starts real early for the Raptors usually.
The series starts when the Raptors can't beat the Cavs in game one.
No, I mean, I really dislike that one. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I understand it. It's like, you know, actually, I don't understand it. That's why I take umbrage with that one. My favorite one is probably just, look, it's all just one game. No matter what happens, it's one game.
Right.
And I like that because I think because you're so emotionally invested, you're so focused, you're thinking about it all the time. You're like listening to this show and we're previewing it for a week straight. Like, there's so much hype that goes into it that when you lose, there's like an extra emotional burden. That's part of why the playoffs, generally speaking, not a fun time.
Yeah.
You're not just sitting around being like, oh, I'm having so much fun. Look at the Raptors in the postseason. You're like, oh my God, why did that go wrong? Why did that go wrong? Why is Chris Boucher fouling out in 15 minutes? Why is Fred picking up 2 fouls in 1 minute? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, why is Joel Embiid, like, you know, dominating the Raptors? You know, why are they over? You start to get into your head too much. You have to step out of it. Live the holistic lifestyle. It really is only one game.
I love when you give this advice. And this man's gonna be. Oh my gosh! Let me screen cap these tweets from you tonight at 7:45 p.m. We're gonna read them tomorrow.
No, it's all good. But no, but seriously though, it's really just one game. Even the Raptors lose tonight, like, I still think that the series doesn't start until a team loses at home, baby.
No. If they lose tonight,
no, the series wouldn't have started though. It's all
that's
good.
right. Still 0-0. You're gonna get a buffet of cliches tomorrow. I also like when the team loses the first two on the road. And they just say, you know, the other team did what they had to do. You know, they protected home court, and now it's our turn. Yeah. And it's like, no. I don't want to fall behind 2-0. I don't want to have to win 4 out of 5. Like, no. Like I don't know, man.
Yeah. So what was your job when you played this game? When you put on the uniform, it was just to go ahead and lose. Like,
I'm gonna track.
I really dislike sports cliches. I'm sorry, because you could get so thoughtful about sports. You know, there's so much emotion that goes into it. Say something, man. Don't just autopilot and be like, yeah, both teams play hard. Like, come on, man.
I'm going to keep track of the cliches as I hear them in the playoffs, and I'll keep running them by you.
Okay. All right.
That's it. Raptors winning tonight.
You're calling it?
Alex guarantee.
Yeah?
Yeah, 1-1.
Who's the surprise? Who's the Gerald Henderson Award winner?
For the Raptors?
For Philly.
For Philly? Georges Niang.
No. For
Toronto?
For Toronto,
Armani Brooks. 4 threes.
What?
In 8 minutes.
4 threes?
In 8 minutes.
Okay, I would love that. All right, we're going to hold you to that one. So that does it for us today. I'm your host, Wolu. You've been listening to The Raptor Show, powered by DoorDash and Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Make sure you find The Raptor Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe, and please rate and review our show. Thanks again to my producer and co-host, Alex Wong, to our guest, Dakhil, to Alvin Williams, and our board producer, Derek Brandale and Jennifer Rowland, for helping us behind the scenes with the YouTube stream. I will talk to you soon. And finally,